In about 23 minutes, you're going to watch a son call the police on his own mother. You're going to watch her get arrested, handcuffed, charged with a felony. And here's the thing that's going to keep you watching until the very end. He doesn't regret it. Not for a single second. $50,000. That's what she stole from him. Not from a stranger. From her own child. She opened credit cards in his name when he was 14 years old. Exposed him to debt collectors before he could legally drive. And when he found out, when he confronted her with the evidence, she told him he was ungrateful. Tonight, we're diving into one of the most requested stories this channel has ever covered. A saga of trust, betrayal, and the impossible choice between your future and your family. I'm going to warn you now, this one's going to make you angry. It's going to make you check your own credit report. And by the end, you're going to understand why sometimes the right thing and the easy thing are never, ever the same. This is the $50,000 betrayal, when mom became a criminal. Let's begin.
So I need to give you some context about who I am before this all makes sense. I'm 26 years old. I work in IT for a mid-sized company, nothing fancy, but the pay is decent. About $67,000 a year before taxes. I've been at this job for 4 years now, and I've been saving like a maniac the entire time. I'm talking packed lunches every day. No vacations. Driving a 2009 Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it because I refused to take on a car payment. My friends would go out to bars on weekends, and I'd maybe join once a month. Maybe. I know that sounds boring. Trust me, I know. But I had a goal. See, I grew up in apartments my whole life. My mom was a single parent, my dad bounced when I was 3, so I barely remember him, and we moved around a lot. Like, a lot. I went to 4 different elementary schools. Money was always tight. I remember the power getting shut off twice, maybe 3 times growing up. So when I got my first real job after college, I made myself a promise, I was going to own a home. An actual house with a yard and a garage and a mailbox with my name on it. Something stable. Something that was mine. By the time I was 26, I had saved $43,500. Not including my 401k, not including my emergency fund. Just pure, liquid savings for a down payment. I found a house I loved. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from work. Listed at $285,000. My realtor said I was in great shape. My pre-approval should be a formality. So I'm sitting in the loan officer's office. Her name was Patricia, I'll never forget her, and I'm feeling good. Nervous, but good. This was the moment I'd been working toward for literally years. Patricia's clicking through her computer, and I'm just watching her face. And I see it change. It's subtle at first. Her eyebrows kind of pull together. She clicks something else. Scrolls down. Clicks again. Then she looks up at me with this expression that I can only describe as pity mixed with confusion. She says, "I'm sorry, but we're not going to be able to approve this loan." And I laughed. I actually laughed because I thought she was joking or there was some kind of mistake. I said, "What do you mean? Did something not go through? Is there a document missing?" She shook her head. "It's your credit score. It's at 524. I felt like someone had just told me a family member died. I literally could not process what she was saying. A 524. That's not, needs improvement. That's not, work on it for a few months. That's borderline catastrophic. That's the kind of score that means you can't finance a used car. That's the kind of score that means landlords won't rent to you." I told her there had to be a mistake. I've never missed a payment in my life. Never. I had 2 credit cards that I paid off in full every single month. I had a small student loan that I'd been paying down consistently. There was no possible way my score was 524. She turned her monitor around and showed me. And that's when my whole life cracked in half. There were accounts on there I had never seen before. Credit cards I didn't recognize. A personal loan from a bank I'd never even heard of. Thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands of dollars. All of it in collections. All of it in my name. Patricia asked if I wanted to print out the full report. I said yes. I walked out of that office holding 6 pages of debt that wasn't mine, and I sat in my car in the parking lot for probably 45 minutes just staring at it. $50,247.83. I remember thinking about the 83 cents for some reason. Like my brain couldn't handle the 50,000, so it focused on the change. The oldest account was opened when I was 14 years old. 14. I couldn't legally work a real job at 14. I couldn't drive. I couldn't vote. I couldn't do anything. But apparently, I could owe $7,400 to a Visa card that had been maxed out and sent to collections.
Let me interrupt here for just a moment. What you're hearing right now is textbook identity theft. But this isn't the kind of identity theft where a hacker in another country steals your information from a data breach. This is something far more insidious, far more common than people realize. It's called familial identity theft. And studies show that over 60% of child identity theft cases are committed by a parent or close relative. Why? Because they have access. They have the social security number. They have the birth certificate. And they assume, correctly in most cases, that the child won't find out for years, maybe decades. By the time the victim realizes what happened, the damage is catastrophic. The debt is old. The accounts are in collections. And the person responsible is sitting across from them at Thanksgiving dinner. Let's continue.
I went home that night and I started digging. I pulled my full credit report from all 3 bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. I made a spreadsheet. I listed every account I didn't recognize, the date it was opened, the amount, the current status. And the pattern was so obvious that it made me sick. The first fraudulent account was opened 3 months after my 14th birthday. A store credit card. Maxed out at $2,500 within 6 weeks. Then another card when I was 15. Another when I was 16. A personal loan when I was 17. Every single account was opened while I was a minor. Every single one was maxed out and then defaulted on. And every single one had the same billing address. My childhood home. Where I lived with my mother. Now look. I know what some of you are thinking. Maybe someone else stole the information. Maybe someone got a hold of it somehow. And yeah, that was my first thought too. I desperately wanted that to be true. But here's the thing, when you open a credit account, especially a personal loan, there are verification steps. Phone numbers. Addresses. Sometimes employment information. The phone number listed on 3 of these accounts? It was our home landline. The one my mom still has. The employer listed on the personal loan? It was her job. The grocery store where she worked as a manager. This wasn't some random identity thief. This was surgical. This was someone who knew everything about me because they raised me. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept going over it in my head, trying to find another explanation. Any other explanation. But there wasn't one. So the next morning, I called my mom. I didn't tell her what I found. I just said I needed to come over and talk about something important. She sounded happy to hear from me. Said she'd make dinner. I almost threw up on the drive there. I got to her apartment, same place she'd been living for about 10 years now, and she had made pot roast. My favorite from when I was a kid. We made small talk for a few minutes. She asked about work. I asked about her garden. Normal stuff. And then I pulled out the credit reports. I set them on the kitchen table. All 6 pages. And I said, "Mom, I need you to explain these to me." She looked down at them. And I watched her face. And I knew. I knew before she said a single word, because her face didn't show confusion. It didn't show shock. It showed recognition. And then it shifted into something else. Annoyance. She sighed, actually sighed, and said, "How did you find out about this?" Not, "What is this?" Not, "I don't understand." Not, "Someone must have stolen your identity." How did you find out? I told her. I told her about the house, about the loan denial, about my destroyed credit score. About the $50,000 in debt that I never created. And you know what she said? She said, I was going to pay it back. I asked her when. When was she planning to pay it back? These accounts have been in collections for years. When exactly was this magical repayment happening? She got defensive. Started raising her voice. Said I didn't understand how hard it was being a single mother. Said there were times when she couldn't make rent, couldn't pay utilities, couldn't put food on the table. Said she did what she had to do to keep a roof over my head. I said, you could have asked for help. You could have applied for assistance. You could have done literally anything other than commit a felony against your own child. And she said, I'll remember this exact quote forever, she said. Family helps family. That's what we do. And if you had any gratitude for everything I sacrificed for you, you wouldn't be sitting here interrogating me like I'm some kind of criminal. I told her she literally was a criminal. What she did was identity theft. It was fraud. It was a felony. She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes at me. She said, you're being dramatic. It's not like I stole from a stranger. You're my son. What's mine is yours and what's yours is mine.
What's yours is mine. That sentence right there tells you everything you need to know about this woman's psychology. In her mind, her child is not a separate person with rights and a future. Her child is an extension of herself. A resource. An asset to be used when convenient. This is not love. This is ownership. And people like this, when confronted with their actions, will never, ever accept responsibility. They will deflect. They will minimize. They will attack. Watch what happens next.
I took a breath. I tried to stay calm. And I gave her an ultimatum. I said, here's what's going to happen. You're going to work out a payment plan to pay off this debt. You're going to take responsibility for what you did. And we're going to figure this out together without involving lawyers or police. I was giving her an out. Despite everything, despite all of it, I was still trying to protect her. Because she was my mother. Because part of me still wanted to believe there was a good person in there somewhere who just made terrible choices. She laughed at me. Actually laughed. She said, pay it off with what money? I'm barely getting by as it is. You have a fancy IT job. You can afford to handle this. I felt something shift inside me at that moment. Something break. I told her, this is $50,000, Mom. This will take me years to pay off. It already cost me my house. If I take on this debt, it will affect the rest of my life. She shrugged. Literally shrugged her shoulders and said, then I guess you'll have to work harder. That was when I told her if she wouldn't take responsibility, I would have no choice but to file a police report for identity theft. That I would dispute every account. That her name would come up in the investigation. That there could be criminal charges. And that's when she turned. She stood up from the table. Got in my face. Started screaming at me. You ungrateful piece of, you would really do that to your own mother? After everything I did for you? I kept you fed. I kept you clothed. I could have given you up, could have left you in the system, but I didn't. And this is how you repay me? I told her I wasn't trying to repay her for anything. I was trying to survive. I was trying to have a future. She said, if you go to the police, I will never speak to you again. You will be dead to me. You will have no family. Is that what you want? To be completely alone? I left. I went home and I didn't know what to do. For about 3 days, I was completely paralyzed. I barely ate. I couldn't focus at work. I just kept turning it over in my head. $50,000. My mother. Police. Prison. And then the phone calls started. My aunt, my mom's sister, called me first. She said my mom told her I was threatening to send her to jail over a misunderstanding. She said I needed to think about what I was doing. She said family doesn't treat family like this. I tried to explain. I told her about the $50,000. About the destroyed credit. About the house I couldn't buy. She said, "So you're going to ruin your mother's life over a house?" Then my cousin called. Same script. Family doesn't do this. Think about what you're doing. You're tearing the family apart. Then another aunt. Then my grandmother. Same thing. Over and over. Not a single one of them asked me how I was doing. Not one of them acknowledged that what my mother did was wrong. All of them acted like I was the villain for even considering holding her accountable. My grandmother, who I had always been close to, told me that if I went through with this, I wouldn't be welcome at Christmas anymore. That she would have to choose sides, and she would choose her daughter. I said, "So you're choosing the person who committed the crime over the victim?" She hung up on me. It was the loneliest week of my life. I felt like I was going crazy. Like maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe I should just eat the debt and try to move on. So I called a lawyer. Just to get a professional opinion. The lawyer was very clear. She said, "What your mother did is a felony. Multiple felonies, actually, across multiple years. If you want to discharge this debt as fraud, you will likely need to file a police report. The credit bureaus and collection agencies will require it as part of the dispute process." I asked her what would happen to my mother. She said, "That depends on the prosecutor. But realistically, she could face prison time. Identity theft of a minor is taken very seriously." I asked her what would happen to me if I didn't report it. She said, "You'll be responsible for the debt. Your credit will remain damaged for years. You'll have difficulty getting loans, credit cards, apartments, potentially even jobs depending on the industry. This will follow you." I thanked her. I paid her consultation fee. And I sat in my car for another hour.
This is the moment. Right here. This is where most victims of familial identity theft fail. They reach the fork in the road and they take the path of least resistance. They absorb the debt. They sacrifice their future to protect someone who wouldn't do the same for them. And I understand why. Family is powerful. Blood is powerful. The guilt, the pressure, the fear of being alone. It's overwhelming. But here's what I want you to understand. When someone steals from you, truly steals from you, they are not treating you like family. They are treating you like a resource, like a mark, like a victim. And you have no obligation to protect someone from the consequences of victimizing you. Let's see what he decided.
I filed the police report on a Tuesday. I remember it was raining. I remember the officer who took my statement was named Martinez. I remember my hands were shaking the entire time. He looked at the credit reports. He looked at the documentation I had gathered, the account applications, the phone numbers, the addresses. He asked me who I suspected. I said, "My mother." He didn't even blink. He just nodded and wrote it down. Later he told me this was more common than people think. That he'd seen it dozens of times. That didn't make me feel better. Over the next few weeks, the investigation moved forward. Detectives interviewed my mother. She apparently denied everything at first, then changed her story when they presented the evidence. Started claiming I had given her permission, that I knew about the accounts, that I had agreed to it. But here's the thing, the first account was opened when I was 14. Even if I had agreed, a 14-year-old cannot consent to a credit contract. That's the whole point. It's fraud either way. 6 weeks after I filed the report, my mother was arrested. She was charged with identity theft, fraud, and forgery. Multiple counts. Felony charges. I found out because my aunt called me screaming. Not my mother. My aunt. She said I had destroyed the family. She said my grandmother was in the hospital with chest pains from the stress. She said I should be ashamed of myself. She said my mother's mugshot was going to be online for the whole world to see. I hung up on her. The calls and texts kept coming for weeks. I eventually had to block most of my family. People I had known my entire life. People who had been at my birthday parties, my graduation, family holidays for decades. All of them turned on me. One of my cousins, who I had actually been pretty close with, sent me a long message about how I was going to hell. About how God commands us to honor our mothers. About how I was worse than she was because at least she was just trying to survive, but I was being vindictive. I saved that message. I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself who these people really are. The only person from my family who reached out to support me was my uncle, my dad's brother, who I barely knew. He had heard about what happened through the grapevine. He said he was sorry. He said what my mother did was wrong and I didn't deserve it. I cried when I read his message. It was the first time anyone in my family had taken my side. The court case took about 8 months to fully resolve. My mother's lawyer tried to get the charges reduced or dismissed. They argued financial hardship, mental health issues, that she was a good person who made mistakes. The prosecutor wasn't having it. They pointed out the pattern, over 3 years of systematic fraud. The amounts involved. The impact on the victim, me. In the end, she pleaded guilty to reduced charges as part of a deal. She got 18 months, with 12 suspended. She served 6 months in county jail and was released on probation. 6 months. For $50,000 of fraud. For destroying her own child's credit. For lying about it, denying it, gaslighting me, and turning my entire family against me. 6 months.
6 months. I want you to sit with that for a moment. If a stranger had stolen $50,000 from him, they likely would have received years in prison. But because it was family, because it was a mother, the court showed leniency. This is the double-edged sword of familial identity theft. The legal system, the social system, everything is built around the assumption that family means something. That blood is sacred. And people like his mother exploit that assumption. They weaponize it. They know that their victims will hesitate. That society will pressure them to forgive. That the courts will show mercy. And they're usually right. But not always.
The fraud dispute process took over a year. I had to provide police reports to every collection agency, every credit bureau. I had to fill out affidavits. I had to prove, over and over again, that I was a victim. Some of the debts were discharged entirely. The courts ordered restitution as part of my mother's sentence, but let's be realistic, she'll never pay it. She doesn't have the money. She never had the money. That's the whole reason she stole from me in the first place. But slowly, my credit started to recover. It took 18 months, but I got my score back above 700. Not perfect, but workable. Loanable. Livable. And then I bought my house. Different house than the first one I was looking at, that one sold long ago, but better, actually. 4 bedrooms. Bigger yard. Better neighborhood. I signed the papers. I got the keys. I walked through the front door of my own home, completely alone, and I just stood there in the empty living room for about 10 minutes. I wasn't happy, exactly. It's complicated. There was satisfaction. There was relief. There was this feeling of, I did it. Despite everything, I did it. But there was also this hollow space where my family used to be. I haven't spoken to my mother since before the trial. She's tried to reach out a few times since she got out, letters mostly, since I have her blocked everywhere else. I don't open them. I just throw them away. I haven't spoken to my aunts, my grandmother, most of my cousins. I think about them sometimes, especially around holidays. Last Christmas I cooked a turkey just for myself, which felt kind of pathetic, but also kind of peaceful. I've started building something new. Friends who became like family. My uncle, my dad's brother, and I have gotten closer. He came to see the house last month. Brought me a housewarming gift. People ask me if I regret it. If I would do it differently. And the answer is no. Absolutely not. Because here's what I realized, my mother didn't just steal my money. She stole my trust. She stole years of my financial future. She stole the assumption I should have been able to make, that the person who raised me wouldn't treat me like a mark. And then, when she got caught, she tried to steal my reality. She tried to make me believe I was the bad guy. That I was ungrateful. That I was destroying the family. But I wasn't destroying anything. She destroyed it. Years ago. She just didn't want to face the consequences. I gave her a chance. I gave her an out. I literally begged her to just work with me, to take responsibility, to be my mother for once instead of my exploiter. And she chose herself. She chose to keep taking. She chose to call in reinforcements to pressure me into being a victim forever. So I chose myself too. And I'm not sorry.
Family helps family. That was her defense. That was her justification. That was the weapon she used to silence anyone who might have questioned what she did. But I want you to think about what those words actually mean. Family helps family. Not family exploits family. Not family steals from family. Not family commits felonies against family and expects silence. The contract, the unspoken contract of family, is supposed to go both ways. You protect each other. You support each other. You sacrifice for each other. She didn't sacrifice anything. She took. And she expected her son to pay the price for her taking. That's not family. That's predation. To anyone watching this who has been victimized by someone close to you, by a parent, a sibling, a spouse, anyone, I want you to hear this clearly. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to choose your own future. You are allowed to hold people accountable for their actions, even if those people share your blood. Forgiveness is a gift. It is not an obligation. And choosing not to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm is not betrayal. It's survival. Our protagonist lost his family that day. But he gained something more important. He gained his future. He gained his self-respect. He gained the peace of knowing that he refused to be a victim forever. And 18 months later, he's standing in a house that belongs to him. Built on his work, his sacrifice, his choices. That's not a tragedy. That's a victory. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, if you've been through something similar, or if you know someone who has, share this video. The more people understand how common familial identity theft is, the fewer victims there will be. Until next time.